Progressive Democrats are calling for some Republican members of Congress to be removed from the House following a report they communicated with people planning Washington, D.C. rallies on January 6th. The story came from Hunter Walker in Rolling Stone this week. He reports 7 Republican lawmakers met with the March for Trump and Stop the Steal organizers dozens of times leading up to the day of the electoral vote count. On top of that, Walker reports Arizona's Paul Gosar promised a blanket pardon from then President Trump. Because of that, Democrats such as New York's Alexandria, Ocasio-Cortez, and Missouri's Cori say those lawmakers should be expelled from Congress. Bush cited an 1866 provision in the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which allows Congress to remove federal officials for engaging in an insurrection against the Constitution. And that is the subject of Jamelle Bouie's latest column in the New York Times. He argues the Democratic majority has the power to stop a movement to undermine electoral democracy, and they should use it. And CBS News political analyst and New York Times opinion columnist Jamelle Bouie joins me now. Hi, Jamelle. Welcome. So let's back up for a second and help us understand the history behind all this. What happened in the 1860s that is relevant now?
Well, the Civil War happened in the 1860s, and part of what happened after the Civil War was that President Andrew Johnson, who took over after Lincoln, very quickly re-enfranchised and pardoned former Confederate leaders who then made their way into Congress. And for the Republican majorities at the time, this was pretty much unacceptable. Republican or former Confederate lawmakers in Congress could act as obstacles to any attempt to reconstruct the South on a more equitable basis. And so as the Reconstruction period progressed and the drafting of the 14th Amendment commenced, those Republican congressmen introduced this clause into the 14th Amendment that was more or less aimed at keeping those ex-Confederate leaders out of Congress.
And also remind us what would have happened if those southern state lawmakers had remained in Congress.
Well, had they remained in Congress, they would have been more or less an implacable obstacle to, again, any attempt to reconstruct the South on a more equitable basis. They would have had the votes more or less to block anything, and certainly block new constitutional amendments. They would have been able to block the 14th Amendment had they been seated. And so for Republican congressmen, it was absolutely critical to keep them out. And Section 3 of the 14th Amendment is, again, more or less explicitly designed to make sure that participants in the Confederacy couldn't seat in Congress and then obstruct the attempt to deal with the consequences of the Civil War.
Okay, so that is the history behind this provision that empowers Congress to expel members, fellow members of Congress who are perhaps, plotting against the Constitution or acting in ways that go against the Constitution. So what is the takeaway then for members of the Democratic majority in the House and Senate today? What should they be taking from this?
I think they should see that the Constitution very clearly gives Congress powers to handle this kind of situation. And if it is, in fact, the case that there were members of Congress who were working with and planning with those who planned the January 6th rallies and the January 6th incursion on the Capitol, then I think Congress does have a responsibility to act. It doesn't mean immediately expelling these members, but commencing a serious investigation into whether they were part of this process and then utilizing the powers that the Constitution grants them to remove them from office. It would be, I think, pretty perverse if one could, from a position of public trust, having sworn an oath to the Constitution, plan events that undermine the Constitution and then somehow escaped all of this without any real consequences.
So we should mention that all of the lawmakers that are mentioned in Hunter Walker's story in Rolling Stone have come out and said that they did not have any communication or, helped in any way for the insurrection to take place. So that's where it gets sticky, right? Because how would you investigate? How would you get the proof? How would you find, sort of the smoking gun, if you will, that could really, stick to these lawmakers?
Well, right now, the January 6th committee is looking into communications, looking into documents, looking into sort of looking at the organizers and how exactly they planned their event and who they were talking to. And I think that in the course of that kind of investigation, if evidence does emerge of communications with members of Congress, and that provides an avenue for which one can pursue.
So sticking with what's going on in Congress right now, we just mentioned that Illinois Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger is not seeking re-election next year after his district was drawn out of existence. He was, of course, one of only 10 Republicans to vote to impeach former President Trump this year and is one of only 2 members of his party on the House Capitol Riot Committee, which is a significant position for him. So do you think his departure from Congress will be significant?
I think it will be significant. I think it already is significant that he is the one of a handful who voted to impeach Trump a second time and is one of 2 on the Select Committee. If the question is whether or not there exists within the Republican Party any kind of sizable minority that can stand up to former President Trump and attempt to move the party into a different direction, I think it's very clear that that's just simply not the case. And Kinzinger's departure from Congress only underscores the fact that to the extent that there is a civil war in the Republican Party, it's already been won. And it was won by President Trump and his allies. And there just simply is not any room for candidates who do not, or politicians who do not even agree with Trump, but who do not support Trump's claim to authority within the party, rather.
And where do you think that could lead down the road?
Down the road, it's hard to say. I think it's clear that former President Trump would like to run for office again, would like to run for the presidency again. And I don't see there really being any attempt to stop him, to beat him from any other potential Republican primary candidate. So that alone, I think, suggests that if it's 2024 and Trump enters the ring, he is the presumptive nominee, and I think the party will coalesce around him much more quickly than it did in 2016. It is Trump's party for as long as he wants it, and that means that the Republican Party as a whole is going to be very reluctant to criticize or challenge or stand against anything Trump does, even if it reaches into illegality, as I think we saw over the last 4 years.
Jamelle Bouie, thank you so much for joining us. As always, we appreciate it.